I was disowned by my wealthy family, betrayed and replaced by my favored younger brother. I grew up in a glass mansion on the outskirts of Boston, all white walls and silent hallways. The kind of house that looks perfect from the outside but echoes when you walk alone at night. My father, Richard Hale, built an empire in real estate and private equity. My mother, Eleanor, curated charity galas like they were art exhibits. And my younger brother, Lucas, was the centerpiece, tall, charming, photogenic. Everything they wanted the Hale name to represent, while I was the mistake they tolerated. The son who looked too much like the past they wanted buried, awkward, quiet, always reading, always thinking, never shining the way Lucas did. From as early as I can remember, the favoritism wasn't subtle. Lucas got praise for breathing while I got criticism for existing. If he brought home a B, it was because the teacher was unfair. If I brought home an A, it was because I probably cheated. Family dinners were performances where I played the role of the disappointment. My father would ask Lucas about his future in the company, then turn to me and ask if I had finally figured out something useful to do with my life. My mother never defended me. She just smiled tightly like I was an inconvenience she hoped would solve itself. The night everything broke happened when I was 21. I had just uncovered something I was never meant to see. While helping my father organize old financial documents, I found sealed folders, offshore accounts, shell companies, and one name that didn't belong, my name, attached to a trust one had never heard of, a trust created the year I was born. When I confronted my parents calmly, confused, hoping for honesty, their faces changed, not panic but irritation, like I had read a script too early. And that was when my father told me the truth in the coldest voice I had ever heard. I wasn't his biological son. I was the result of a mistake Eleanor made years before the marriage. A mistake he agreed to hide to protect appearances. In that moment I understood everything. The distance, the cruelty, the way love always stopped just short of reaching me. They didn't see me as a son. I was a liability they carried until they no longer had to. And once the truth was out, they moved fast. Lawyers appeared, accusations followed. Suddenly I was disrespectful, unstable, ungrateful. They rewrote the story before I could process my own pain. Lucas stood there silent the entire time, eyes avoiding mine, because he had known they all had known except me. Within a week I was cut off, my access to accounts revoked, my name quietly removed from family records. I was offered a small settlement in exchange for signing an NDA and disappearing. When I refused, my father laughed and said I would be nothing without them. That the world only respected the Hale name, not the unwanted bastard attached to it. I left the house with a single suitcase and the kind of heartbreak that feels physical, like something tearing behind your ribs. The years that followed were brutal. I slept in my car, took night shifts, learned how invisible a person can become in America when money and family vanish at the same time. But bitterness slowly turned into focus. I remembered those documents, the structures, the loopholes. I taught myself finance, coding, data analysis, anything that gave me leverage. I worked for startups that burned out, hedge funds that chewed people up. I listened more than I spoke, and I built something quietly, a financial analytics company designed to expose inefficiencies and risks inside massive corporate portfolios, the kind of tool powerful people didn't want turned on them. By the time I was 32, my company was profitable. By 35, it was indispensable. Regulators used it, private firms licensed it, and no one knew who I really was. I used my mother's maiden name, kept my face off websites, let the assumption grow that I was just another tech founder who came from nowhere, and that anonymity was my armor, because all the while I was watching the Hale empire from a distance, studying their moves, their weaknesses, their lies. Here is the secret they never bothered to check. The trust created in my name, the one meant to keep me quiet, had been structured carelessly. One clause tied it to performance metrics that no longer existed. Metrics my company now tracked better than anyone else. With the right legal pressure, that trust could be activated, expanded, and audited. And once audited, it would open doors to every hidden account Richard Hale ever touched. I didn't need revenge driven by anger. I needed precision. The first strike was silent. My firm released a public report on systemic risk in legacy real estate holdings. No names mentioned, just data. Journalists did the rest. Suddenly banks were nervous, investors started asking questions, and Hale Holdings stock dipped. Not enough to cause panic, but enough to bruise my father's pride. The second strike came months later, when an anonymous whistleblower submitted documents to federal regulators. Documents I recognized because I had once held them in my hands. The investigation began quietly, like a storm forming far out at sea. I attended my first Hale charity gala in 14 years as a sponsor. Not a guest. wearing a tailored suit and a calm smile. My name on the donor board read Daniel Moore. Eleanor walked past me 3 times before recognition hit her like vertigo. Her hand trembled around her champagne glass. My father stared like he was seeing a ghost that had learned how to smile. Lucas looked smaller than I remembered. The golden boy dulled by comfort and guilt. No one spoke to me, but everyone felt me. What they didn't know was that this was only the beginning. The trust was already moving through the courts. The investigation was expanding, and Lucas, desperate and overlooked for the first time in his life, had reached out to me privately, carrying a secret of his own. A secret that could shatter what remained of our family. And I am deciding how to use it, because revenge isn't just about destruction. It's about making them understand slowly, precisely, exactly what it feels like to lose. Everything you thought defined you, and I haven't decided yet how far I'm willing to go, but they are finally afraid, and that fear tastes like justice, and this story is still unfolding. Lucas reached out to me 2 days after the gala. A burner email, no subject line, just 4 words, "We need to talk." I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. We met in a quiet cafe in New Haven, neutral ground. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, the golden child finally learning what shadows feel like. He didn't waste time. He told me our father had been using his name to secure risky loans, forging signatures, moving debt into Lucas's personal accounts without his knowledge. The heir apparent was being set up as the fall guy, and the fear in his voice was real, raw, the kind you can't fake. He also told me something worse, the secret he had carried since we were teenagers, the reason he never defended me, the reason he looked away the night I was thrown out. He had overheard our parents arguing years ago, arguing about whether it would be cheaper to send me away to boarding school or let me leave on my own when I turned 18. Because my existence complicated everything, Lucas knew I wasn't wanted. And he chose silence, not out of malice but convenience. He said he hated himself for it, and I believed him, because guilt had finally caught up. I made him a deal, full cooperation, documents, recordings, testimony if needed. In return, I would make sure he didn't go down alone. Not out of brotherly love, but because watching my parents sacrifice their favorite son would be the most poetic justice imaginable. Lucas agreed without hesitation. Betrayal had taught him faster than privilege ever did. The investigation exploded a month later, subpoenas, asset freezes, headlines everywhere, Boston real estate tightened under federal scrutiny, investors fled, board members resigned. My father gave one last defiant interview claiming persecution. But the cracks were too deep. My company's software had mapped every hidden transaction, every shell, every lie. Regulators called it the most comprehensive financial exposure they had ever seen, and behind closed doors they whispered one name, mine. Then the trust came to light. Reporters dug into it like bloodhounds. Why did Richard Hale create a trust for a son he publicly disowned? Why was that trust now valued in the hundreds of millions? My mother stopped attending events, stopped answering calls. Society turned its back on her the way she once turned it on me, quietly, efficiently, without drama. The final blow came when I sued, not for money, but for truth. The court case forced everything into the open. Paternity tests confirmed what they tried to bury, Eleanor's affair, Richard's complicity, the years of emotional abuse documented through witnesses, emails, even old family staff who finally felt safe enough to speak. The judge's ruling was surgical. The trust was legally mine, expanded through mismanagement. I was awarded controlling interest in several Hale subsidiaries, effectively. Dismantling the empire my father built on cruelty and secrets. I saw my parents one last time outside the courthouse. My father looked older than his years, smaller, like the world had finally removed the illusion he hid behind. My mother cried, but not for me. She cried for the life she lost, the invitations, the status, the admiration. She tried to apologize, said she did what she thought was best. I told her the truth calmly, that the worst thing she ever did wasn't the affair. It was choosing comfort over compassion every single day afterward. Then I walked away. Lucas took a plea deal, cooperated fully, lost his inheritance but kept his freedom. We don't talk much now. Some wounds don't heal into closeness, just understanding. And that's enough. He's building something honest for the first time in his life. I hope he succeeds, not for him, but because breaking the cycle matters. Today I live quietly. The headlines have faded. My company thrives, not because of revenge, but because it's built on transparency. I reclaimed my real name. Not the one they gave me, but the one I chose, and sometimes I think about that boy walking out of the mansion with a suitcase and no future. If I could speak to him now, I'd tell him this. Being unwanted does not make you worthless. It makes you dangerous in the best possible way. Because when you survive without love, you learn how to Build something stronger than approval. And that is how this story ends, not with forgiveness, not with hate, but with justice, earned, undeniable, and permanent. Please like, share, and subscribe for more stories.